this so interesting event. We have had um, subjects that are really going around our mind. And just to continue with that same tune, I'm very glad to present the next position, which is Mr. Malcolm Forrest. Let me introduce Mr. Malcolm Forrest to all of you. Malcolm Forrest is a curator and restorer of classic cars, a pioneer in an antigo mobilismo, and founder of Autos Antiguos Brazil. He is in the first Brazilian magazine on collector automobiles. As a musician and filmmaker, he has released over 40 albums and directed historical films. Passionate about environmental and cultural preservation, he played a crucial role in securing UNESCO World Heritage status for Sao Paulo. They have a Greenbelt Biosphere Reserve and um, also in the historic city of Diamantina. His dedication to nature conservation and sustainability earned him a Nobel Peace Prize nomination in 2020. So please welcome Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. Well, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you. Thank you, Pedro, for your kind words of introduction. And it's been amazing, an amazing day, an amazing morning. Before I start, I'd like to just point out some of the things that I made notes here this morning. And say that I see automobiles from a human standpoint and an artistic standpoint and an emotional viewpoint, nostalgia. Collector cars are just cars, or are they really a sentimental journey? Like music, collector cars are universal and bring people together from different places and different walks of life. I want to bring autos and music and people together. They are art. Cars tell stories. It's storytelling. We become sentimentally attached to them. They are emotion. They are really part of our lives. I liked hearing about entropy, the semiotics, and so many different aspects that we had this morning. And I'm looking for partners to bring together the classic cars, the classic eras, good memories, and music. I have a lot more that I made notes of, but let's go into my presentation. Maybe we come back to some of these points. Very good. So the talk is restoring beauty to the beast. What is the beast? The beast is an unpreserved car, a barn find, something that is highly wrecked, but has a strong significance in history, in design, and emotions. A little bit more about me. It's been said a lot already by our friend Pedro. I'm a singer, and I had a record release in Mexico in the 1980s by Mozart. This is the album cover. I'm also a composer of serious music, symphonic music, and not so serious music like the clip that you have seen with the song Guitar Heroes. I've written a few books, not many, and one on the Cantareta Mountains, part of the Green Belt, that was entitled by UNESCO a Biosphere Reserve And Mexico has 44 biosphere reserves. Many of them have archaeological relics in them. So Brazil has maybe 4 or 5 now only. And the other book is this book here, Automóveis de São Paulo. The Automobiles of São Paulo is a photographic memory of families, persons, automobiles, and places. I've also made a few films. We have a video that Jorge will play for us if possible. A short trailer of one film called Frei Galvão, the Architect of Life, of Light. Frei Galvão is Antonio Santana de Galvão, the first Brazilian saint. And the other film that I produced, and we're starting a series, we'll make 2 more this year, is A Jornada dos Príncipes, The Journey of the Princes. It's the history of Prince Pedro I and his wife Leopoldina Habsburg from Austria, and the saga of Brazilian independence. Okay, next. Well, the São Paulo Greenbelt Biosphere Reserve, it's important to mention this because we are talking here about preservation, about restoration, and preserving life and memory. So I was very glad to participate in this movement that got the title from UNESCO in 1994. Diamantina was the next project that we got the World Heritage title by UNESCO. I was the leader in these two, with other people, of course, in these other 2 movements. And then we had the celebration of Brazilian independence in 2022. And now this year is the celebration of the bicentennial of the second emperor of Brazil, Pedro II. And I must say that there exists in Brazil a restoration movement to restore constitutional monarchy. So I see some significances in what we are talking about here, what we're presenting, and what's happening in the world at large. Well, restoration, of course, is just not technology. It is truly an art. It requires patience, knowledge, research, and full respect for history in the broad sense. It's the history of the car, of the make, of the industry, but also the memory of the people who own them and what happened in the lifespan. It is truly a labor of love. Now I'll show you a few of my cars that I've restored. The first one is not this one, the BMW 327-8. This is the first car that I bought in 1939, and it took 40 years to have it restored. It was my first restoration project, let's say. And now we see here, thanks to Mr. Felix Ferber of Mercedes-Benz of Brazil, very kind man, very dedicated. We were capable of restoring the 170S Cabriolet B Mercedes, one of only 2 that exist in Brazil. And I was passionate by this car. I saw it running on the streets. I tried to go after, but I couldn't reach the car. I put ads in magazines and newspapers, and finally, a few years later, I found the car in the south, another one, in the south of Brazil, in the state of Santa Catarina, a town called Chapecó. And that was a long, drawn process, but Mr. Felix Ferber, God have him, helped us very much. And the other photo, I'm driving with my late wife, one of the very pleasant moments in a parade that we had. Próximo. ¿Se puede adelantar? Okay, and here's the BMW. Why to history? We don't have all the history of these 2 cars, but many things were changed. Dashboard was changed, but it was an all numbers match. You know, the bodywork and engine, gearbox, everything. And I have here 2 photos. One back in 1980, 81 to the right, and then currently it restored. They don't look too much different, but it was a long drawn labor, many problems, finding parts in many different places of the world, even Russia, close to Russia, Switzerland, US, Canada, Brazil. Próximo. Next, please, Jorge. I think we're all better here. And some very kind, pleasant moments when we achieve something in restoration that is beautiful. These instruments, the dashboard instruments, are really pieces of art, and I was very pleased when I had them finished in Brazil. By the way, in Brazil we have excellent professionals, and antique mobilism, it's a word that I coined, uh, is growing, 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 keeps growing, like here in Mexico and all over the world. Actually, we're making friends. The fellowship element in car collecting is very, very important. Próximo, por favor. So now we get to a very interesting and rare automobile, a Greif und Stift. This is an Austrian make that was considered the Rolls Royce of Europe, of the continent, built in Austria, of course. Próximo. And here we have a video that shows the Greif und Stift after restoration. This is the only remaining S3 model of a total of about, all in all, 20 Greif und Stief that remain in the world. Currently, there's a show in Vienna that has about 12 of them. They invited our car, but the cost was too expensive and in short notice to take it there. And these pictures, it's not finalized, it was already running. You can see the interior of the car. We tried to replicate as much as possible the grandeur, the luxury, the beauty of the era. Okay. Okay, now this is the beast. When it came into my hands, it was already some restoration had been done, uh, but what was done, most of it had to be reworked on. This is a problem because different approaches, not good craftsmanship, but we did a very good work, in my opinion. Próximo. And Guy von Stief is famous because of a murder, actually, incident that happened in Sarajevo in 1914. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was visiting Sarajevo, and there was an attempt to his life. He escaped the first try, but then unfortunately he went back on the road, and terrorists killed him and his wife. And they were riding in 1912 Greif und Stief of the diplomatic service. And this is the issue that kicked off World War One, and as a consequence, we have then World War Two. And here's the colorized photo of the Archduke, and the photo of a prospect, very rare prospect folder of the S3 model. I got this through the club in Vienna. From their files, they had to dig in to get it. Next, próximo. Here we see some of the artwork in the car. There is a vase with Saint Christopher in silver, and the clockwork. It is a mix of Art Deco and some Nouveau. Próximo. Stages of this work. We have excellent woodwork men and panel beating, always working with tin, no plastic whatsoever. And we built also the wheel discs. That is a very good accessory that brings a lot of beauty to the car. Next. Another shot of the car interior, vanity with Our Lady image in it. Próximo. Okay, now I want to show you a, a make that I'm fascinated by. Isotta Fraschini from Italy was probably the most expensive car in its day, highly luxurious, very advanced technology. And here we have a model, a Spider Sport, that was owned by Gabriella Besanzoni, famous opera singer. We'll have a slide on that one. And I was lucky enough to get this Castagna plant blueprint. It had to be restored, but and the reconstruction of this car was done from interviews, some statements of people that knew the car. It was used in racing. It wasn't a race car, but it ended up with the in-law or the nephew of Dona Gabriela in races in Rio de Janeiro. It was a speedster. Próximo. Okay, next. Here we have a picture of this setup from Castagna and the original blueprint, very damaged. Próximo, por favor. And I am friends of the royal family of Brazil. This is Prince Dom Bertrand de Orleans de Bragança, head of the imperial house, and he really loves classic cars. So we had this shot with the Isotta Fraschini in its first stages of restoration. It was shown, in fact, at Araxá Concours d'Elegance, as I had it when I bought it from Signor Dino. Next, please. And here, pictures of Caruso that sang with Dona Gabriela Besanzoni Laggi. And coincidentally, they sang in Peru, USA, Metropolitan, in Europe, and in Mexico. There's lots of photos and lots of little stories about their presence here. The car, legend has it, was a wedding present from her husband, Enrique Laggi, and he also gave her a Villa Gabriela in Rio de Janeiro. It's a beautiful park just under the Corcovado Mountains, the Christ Redeemer, and they owned 4 Isotta Fraschini at the time. Próximo. Different stages of the restoration. We have concluded all mechanicals, starting electrical, all body work, all wood work. We're currently painting the car with much love. Próximo. Some details of the engine. It's the Spider Sport Super Spinto 8ASS engine. Próximo. And now I'm going to show a car that is very dear to me and very, very dear to my friend Gautam Sen. He will have lots of stories to tell about this automobile. It was owned by Raja Sajid Hussain from Kotwara. Next slide, please. Here we have it. It was restored when it came into my custody, my care, by Peter Grant, actually, manager of Led Zeppelin, who owned the car at one time. And this photograph was taken at Pebble Beach, and we were doing some photos, some artistic photos for a film project, David Golder, that hasn't happened yet. Próximo. And I asked Gautam, and he did a magnificent work in a book that tells the story of the young Raja, as we call him. Cars have nicknames. They're so attached to people, to families. Próximo. It's a long story, as I said, but the Queen of the Manor was one of the tender nicknames that the car had. We have it with Sajid Hussain, the young Raja in Scotland at a time where he was studying close to a lake. and we have the coat of arms of Scotland. The car, as you see, well, you can't see, it was a different color. It was 2 tones of green, and it had a side trunk that it doesn't have anymore. But the La Ligue Victoire hood element, ornament is there, and we have a very good replica of it on the car as well. Next, please. It was eventually back in India. It was bought in the UK. We have the original sales ad of this Isotta Fraschini 1135, and then the Raja finished his schooling in Scotland, went back to India and brought the car with him, and it was the wedding car with Princess Selma from Turkey, and a lot of history, a lot of family history, a lot of history of India in it also. And Muzaffar Ali, his son, inherited the car and kept it for many years in a loving, loving, loving setup. Later on, unfortunately, it was sold to the UK, and the manager of Led Zeppelin bought it, Peter Grant, and Peter Grant did the restoration that we have today with some things that we have added and improved and corrected. Next, please. Here at Retromobile, at the showing produced by Gautam, called The Cars of the Maharajahs, we have in the picture Muzaffar Ali in black in the middle with his wife, actually, the ambassador of India in Paris, and the sister, his half sister, Keniz Murad, that is a great writer, and she wrote this book that is a bestseller in many languages, and she has fantasized a lot of the story with scenes of the Isotta Fraschini being used by her father. Prossimo. We took it twice to Pebble Beach, once to Retromobile, the Windsor Castle Concours d'Elegance. The picture here shows it there at Windsor. And it has been at several other concours and exhibits, and always awarded some prize. Next. This is a tip for those of you who may be interested or doing some restoration of the Grand Classic era. This book is an excellent book. It tells you everything about vanities, how to photograph the cars. He worked, Hugo Fall worked with coach builders in New York and the US, and has drawn his experience into this book. So the question sometimes is what to restore or not to restore. Do we preserve something as is? Do we correct things that are not like the original? If we correct some things, we might be going against the history or the memory of the car, because along the years, things might have been changed because of lack of the parts or because the owners want to improve something. So it's always a dilemma. Next, próximo. And I have here some bullet points. The first phrase is not correct, but Eduardo Lee, one of the pioneers in collecting in Brazil, used to say that in collecting, the car is usually almost always the cheapest item. The costly part comes with restoration, maintenance, research, storing, etc. And as we heard earlier today, most restorations go over budget, and they are not covered by the sales price. Convertibles used to be considered to be more valuable. They still are, and double the price of a sedan, of a closed car, sometimes triple the cost, the value. Próximo, por favor. And we see also what I call decade shifts. As new generations come into the collection world, their interests migrate to cars that they have seen, admired in infancy and youth. Many influential forces also are racing and prestige cars of celebrities. The grand classics, as I call them, tend now to be waiting in the wings. But as we heard earlier, it's a thing of beauty, it's a thing of value, it's an artwork. It will, in time, keep its value. And also, history and provenance is very important in the valuation of a car because they are emotional power points. Next. So, in time, which would you value most? Next. Here we have an art piece that was sold for $110 million. Okay. Next. And this is the original Mona Lisa. Of course, it's not fair to compare these things, but it gives us food for thought. You know, what is important to us? What is valuable to us? Rocio? In my home, I have this huge painting of an Eric Perez. He's Mexican, Caverna. And I appreciate this very much. It has touches of the classical and some of the modernity. Next, Rocio. Okay, so I see four main approaches. Preserving a barn find, you can preserve it, its history, but then again, what do people like most? To see the beauty or quote unquote the beast as is in a barn find? Restore to original factory conditions, you know, this has been discussed a lot here today, or better than it left the factory, which was a trend, especially in America, to overdo, over restore chrome when chrome did not exist in the late mid 20s. Many cars, classics are chromed, exotic colors. But then again, color, this is an issue, a matter of taste. The person who owns the car may wanted a different color than not the factory standards or suggestions. And also, we have to consider the car's life history, as I said, and the tastes and preferences of its owners. What happened along the lifespan? Próximo, por favor. So, the challenge of historical fidelity, restoration also is not just beautifying, of course, as I was saying. It's about maintaining authenticity. This has been discussed a lot here today. Yeah. I tend, in my personal view, avoid over restoration. You know, finishes that never existed, things that are too much for the car. We have to compromise the use of traditional materials with current date materials. Old paints, old paints that mean nitrocellulose and modern paints. By the way, I'd like to point out that the Mercedes-Benz that I showed you, our convertible 170S, it was painted back in 1999, 2000 with Glazerite technology. The factory sent us technicians. They send us also the paint materials, and it's lasting over 24 years already, unblemished. So I highly recommend Glazerite. Okay, now drawing a parallel with historical heritage. This palace here is called Patio do Colégio in São Paulo. It's the birthplace of São Paulo and practically of Christianity in South America. It was here. This painting is pictures it back in the 18th century, 19th century. It was a smaller church originally by the Jesuits, and then it was rebuilt to a bigger scale, and then even bigger scale. Next, please. We see here a photograph in the early 20th century, and then for some reason it was demolished. Politically, they decided to demolish this site and build some new building until 1954, when São Paulo celebrated 400 years history. A decision was made to reconstruct the original Patio do Colégio church and school of the Jesuits. And they found just one wall that was from the early 17th century. However, with photographs, drawings, and the historical knowledge, they were able to rebuild it. Vuelve, por favor. Back one. to very close to what we see in this painting. And it's today the most important touristic attraction in the city of Sao Paulo because it really depicts the history of our city, of our state, and Brazil also. Okay, próximo. Next. So, and here we have the Christ Redeemer statue that is one of the seven wonders of the world and also a World Heritage by UNESCO. That is very symbolic of history and faith. Próximo. And with this, I'd like to invite you to come to Brazil. In fact, there's going to be a venue next year, a FIVA, I understand. So come and visit during the Pedro II bicentennial also. Próximo. So the restoration of classic cars is a way of preserving history, a very strong way of doing this. The journey and lives of the people who rode in the cars, the times of the car, and what holds more value, a car preserved as original factory, out of the assembly line, or a car that has in it the marks of time. So we have food for thought here. So I would be glad to answer questions if you have any and hear your comments. And I thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you. Próximo. Our designer, Isabella. Próximo. And the QR code has all my data. So if you'd like to take a picture, unfortunately, we lost a few numbers of the telephone. The telephone is what you read there, plus 5016. Feel free to call, send messages, WhatsApp, whatsoever. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any after lunch questions? No? Okay.
In fact, I won't ask you the question, Malcolm, because it's a question I think both of us would like to ask Mr. Collier, maybe. I know, I know, in case you're wondering. Now, the reason is simply this. This is a car with the sort of Fashkini that we are referring to, the one which used to belong to the Raja of Kotwara. That car, we understand from his son, Muzaffar Ali, who we know quite well, was painted a light and a dark green. It was a light green, dark green. As he called it, the two sides of a leaf kind of a shade. And then, of course, at some point of time in the 1990s, it was restored by Peter Grant, and he did it a sort of an ivory and black combination, a classical one. And now that's obviously today it's in a state that the car does not need to be restored. It's in a very nice condition. Now, but if you do need to restore it, what do you do at this point of time? Do you leave the car's history being what it is? It was originally a certain shade. At some point midlife, it had a change in shade and that remains so. Or would you take it back to the light green, dark green, which we don't know exactly what the shade is, but it's somebody's fictional imagination that says it was light green, dark green. What should we do?
Well, I think you're in luck. The world is your oyster. And in other words, whatever makes you happy. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, the original surface is gone. Somebody chose, for whatever reason, to do it in ivory and black, and it looks really nice that way. And we have some historical anecdotal evidence, or maybe even some chips or something, that it was two shades of green. And at this point, if you happen to appreciate the automobile as a document of history, then you might consider going back to the green. On the other hand, if on the 7 avenues of engagement, you're an aesthete and you really like the black and white, about black and cream, then as Ralph Lauren does with all of his cars, he is heavily driven by aesthetics. You have the right to do that. Now, if the car still had its original paint, different story. But this car has lost its original paint.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
agree. And I would add that ivory and black are very distinctive classical colors. It's not something that's psychedelic out of the era. And then again, it's part of the car's history because Peter Grant owned it. Led Zeppelin members rode in it. It was in London, blah, blah, blah. So it's part of the history. It's in the video clip that you've seen, perhaps Guitar Heroes. So that all of this is already history of the car. Of course, it's not the original back in the late 20s, the early 30s. And I think it's a matter of taste. The owner calls the shots. I want it that way. Okay. You may like it or not like it. I would always tend to preserve originality and do something in good taste that is in line with the history of the car. Any more questions? Oh, bravo. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro.
Very much to Mr. Malcolm Forrest. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.